we see a lot of these Hollywood guys, and the conversation is always about how they put on a certain amount of muscle, right? And they look the part.
Yeah, and how do they do that, though? Let's talk about that for a second.
Yes.
Because none of them talk about it. None of those are natural bodies. Those guys don't walk around looking one way like 6 months out of the year, and then all of a sudden they have 35 pounds of muscle on them. We all know what they're doing. A lot of people don't want to admit that for some reason, as if you're going to put 60 pounds of muscle on by yourself eating chicken and rice. Now, we know that's not possible.
It's interesting that he always says the words there. So basically disassociating from himself, especially when, if you factor in, see this isn't like a suntan. This is often when you take high amounts of certain performance enhancing drugs, you get this sort of red tint, well, mainly white people, you get this sort of red tinge. It's almost like the Red Hulk. So I would definitely say he's taking at least testosterone at the bare minimum. Typically, we all know Hollywood actors usually either omit or highly downplay if they are using any sort of special substance to get their physique, because, you know, for the general public, they normally just try and tell them they eat 6,000 calories and they have like some crazy diet, somewhat to seem impressive and also kind of lift themselves up.
I had to eat like a ton of food, so I had there were sort of these pre-packaged meals, put like 6,000 calories into containers and were just feed to me all day.
Did you say 6,000 calories?
But today we have two celebrities breaking down, or at least exposing, what Hollywood stars do to build these physiques. And one of these people is Shia Labeouf, which is someone I would not have really expected. But at the same time, I am not too surprised because he's a highly method actor.
I was about to die. We had a cardiologist tell me, you gotta stop. I was on like all kind of weird.
But then we also have, as you saw in the intro, Frank Grillo talking about this kind of stuff as well. But one of the reasons I want to start with Shia Labeouf is simply because he has probably got the physique that you wouldn't even have expected to be taking steroids. Like Frank Grillo, regardless of what happens when we watch his clip to see if he actually does admit to taking stuff, his physique is exceptional. So you can kind of be like, oh, some will say, you know, what do you expect? But with Shia Labeouf, the sort of size we're looking at is this. Like, this isn't crazy insane. Like, for most people, you can get that physique. He is quite broader than he normally is, but he's not like super shredded or even has crazy amounts of mass. He just looks broad. And just to give context to his physique, to show you what he's looked like in the past, he's like a regular looking dude. He's not super skinny, he's not bulky or anything. This is the sort of physique he's had. He has looked better than this in the past, such as this clip here. So you can see deep down, he does have a decent kind of base underneath the fat. But who knows, even for this physique, if it was for a role, if he did things based on what he's about to say. But in general, he didn't walk around looking like that though. This is probably a more accurate depiction of what his physique was like before he decided to do this role.
Because you had a fairly big transformation for this. What was that like for you?
It was like, well, how am I going to fit in this world? I'm so tiny, you know, small. And if you go meet any of these fighters, these travelers, even guys in my position who are just kind of bookies, they're big boys. They're bigger, you know, and I didn't want to act a lot. So I figured if I was bigger, I could be quieter.
So you can see his physique there. Like, he's definitely much broader than we've seen him in the past. But he's not like ridiculous. For example, if you had seen Shia Labeouf walking around like this, you wouldn't have naturally thought, you know what, he's on any sort of enhancements. You'd probably just think he bulked up for a role. Even though I will say his traps definitely do look a lot more trappy than they usually did. But in terms of like his midsection and his arms and stuff, yeah, he's swolled up, but it's not something that you can't achieve with actually training. But you have to remember, these movie stars, they need to get in shape quick for these roles. Like, he may have only been told like 6 months out, and he has to now radically improve his physique from the clips we saw earlier. And of all the people, even though I'd said I didn't really expect him to do this based on his physique, if you take into consideration his mindset, this is a guy that pulled out one of his real tooth for a movie when he was doing, I think it's called Fury. So this is someone that really takes this method acting stuff really seriously. And he doesn't mind putting his body and his mind on the back burner if it means elevating the role, which I guess is commendable, but also worrying at the same time, because you are literally putting your body in danger to achieve these things. So he goes on to say more, which is, I guess, more worrying.
He's got to be a bit, you got to get the passport, you know, you got to get permission. So permission was like the size. So I was about to die. We had a cardiologist tell me, you got to stop. I was on like all kind of weird steroids, like not steroids, but it's called SARMs. You know what that is? SARMs? No. Yeah, some weird new steroid that they gave me that I got big.
He was eating a lot as well.
I was eating a lot.
So as you heard, he said he was on new steroids, which is SARMs. So I'll be the first to admit that I am not the super expert when it comes to performance enhancing drugs, but from what I've gathered from SARMs, it is basically a new untested version of steroids. So even though steroids can be dangerous and technically are illegal in most places, there has been like thorough tests on them because they've been around for so long, whereas SARMs is a much more newer drug, but it's also much more easier to get hold of. So you can get them on the internet a little bit easier, which is why there is an epidemic of teenage boys and even girls now, to be honest, taking SARMs because it's a lot easier to get. A lot of them, for example, can also be oral as well, because a lot of people are scared of injections. But even though orals are just as dangerous, or sometimes even more so, people are more willing to take a tablet than they are get an injection. So for that reason, SARMs has become very, very popular, and he decided to get that. But what's more worrying is the fact that he's a super celebrity. You would think if he wants to get big and jacked, they probably wouldn't give him SARMs because it's so untested and can be more dangerous than actually taking like just testosterone, for example. Because it's not like he had to get like super diced as well. He probably only needs some sort of protocol to help him build on size. So it's kind of odd that they got him SARMs. It makes me feel like whoever gave him the stuff probably wasn't even like a proper like Hollywood trainer. It was probably just some guy on set that said, I can get you some stuff. And given the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, Shia Labeouf literally to get his teeth pulled because no real dentist would do it, I think he had to like pay some dodgy guy to yank out his tooth in a back alley or something like that. So it does make me think that he procured these drugs through dodgy circumstances, because I don't believe a Hollywood trainer, because they do give them drugs, would give him SARMs specifically, because it's just a much more dangerous thing for your athlete or celeb to use. And that's me knowing that from my little knowledge. You have to think someone that's actually giving this to a superstar, you'd think they'd know more as well.
But I was doing everything.
Really? And how did you lose it?
Stop doing SARMs and then stop eating.
But how much?
That is actually a good question. He's saying, how did you lose it? Because as you can see here, he ain't still big like that. He's definitely trimmed down a lot. His face is less full and bloated. His body overall, his frame is a lot thinner. So, and they're still doing the press for this movie, which means the movie's probably not more than probably 6 months gone. So he's trimmed down quite a bit from then. So it's a good that he asked the question and he said, well, I stopped taking the drugs, so the gains left. So that's a message to those of you out there that think you can just take some of these stuff and retain all the gains. That's not the case. As quick as it came is usually as quick as it will leave.
Yeah, but it was really big, and now it looks like Gollum. That's how much did you weigh? That was like 28 pounds, 2 stones?
I shipped out, I was 220, 215, 220, and now I'm 165. Sort of.
That's a lot of weight to put on and lose.
With that being said, if you saw his physique when I showed it, he did put on muscle, but I think a good chunk of it as well with water weight, because he looks very full and bloated. His face was fuller, his body looks a lot more puffier. But as he mentioned, he just wanted size. He wanted to just be broad so he could, in the movie, just appear more domineering. It's almost like Bane when he was in Batman. The whole point was to look bigger than Christian Bale. So, yeah. And that's really as much as Shia Labeouf in this interview goes into the steroids. He obviously told you how much he spiked up in weight. He went from 168 up until around 220, which is mad high because I don't think Shia Labeouf's even that tall. I'm gonna guess maybe 5'10"-ish. I could be wrong, let me know in the comments. But overall, he just obviously exposed what he took, which is some dodgy back alley stuff. Now, even though I do personally think that Shia Labeouf is more famous than Frank Grillo, as in like he's led movies and stuff, is more so, I think Frank Grillo, being a more matured person and being older, I don't think he would take SARMs. We're going to hear what he says in a minute. But I do think he'd probably do the more, if he does take anything, because he may say he doesn't. I think he does take at least TRT. But he may go over a more specialist and I would say more Hollywood-esque protocol, which would be less dangerous drugs, I would assume. Because at the end of the day, they don't want their stars to die. They're not trying to be bodybuilders on stage, apart from someone like Reacher, who's flipping huge in the movies.
They might not want to say it, but they all do. Everybody.
I'm curious for both of you. You've paid attention to the fitness discussion. Do you think that we talk too much only about muscle and we don't talk about things like, you know, again, like that level of readiness and just consistency being more important than the idea of, I feel like at some point we got caught up in this idea of muscle is the organ of longevity and that's all you need, right?
Well, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, as you get older, you need to lift heavier weights and build muscle. Men need to build muscle as they get older. Otherwise, you're in trouble. It's science. Lift heavy weights. How do men become? How do they stay strong into the late age? Is lift heavy weights. It's that simple. You don't want to do 15 sets of 25.
That is so true. Like, weightlifting is highly important, especially as you age. I do feel like lately, with the rise of, like, when everyone was getting into running, and now I guess high rocks is a bit, which is a bit of both. A lot of people tend to downplay, like, traditional sort of bodybuilding style training, like lifting weights to get stronger and build stronger bones. But it is really important, because as you age, you don't want to be the one with brittle bones. You can barely walk up the stairs and stuff, because your body just feels so frail. Dense bones and strong muscles and decent joints is going to be the best thing ever as you age. And even though he did then specify men, it's good for women too. Like, both genders should be lifting up the weights, because it's going to be a net positive in the long run. But one thing to highlight, as a man, I do think it's even more so important, simply because there's going to be many scenarios if you're in like a typical relationship where you are going to probably do a lot more of the lifting than your girlfriend, your wife, or whoever it is, simply because you are the dude. That's just what tends to happen, especially since my daughter, for example, is getting heavier. I'm the one that typically carries her most of the time around about. I'm the one that carries most of the suitcases. I'm the one that carries most of the stuff. I'm not complaining about it. That's just how life goes, and I'm cool with it. It's a very minor thing, but instances like that happen so often on a daily basis that it's good to build strength. You ain't got to be a world-class powerlifter, but you should at least be stronger than the average.
So lifting weights is important, and not just for men, for women as well.
Yeah, for everybody. We need muscle as some kind of as a starting.
Absolutely.
We see a lot of these Hollywood guys, and the conversation is always about how they put on a certain amount of muscle, right? And they look the part.
Yeah, and how do they do that, though? Let's talk about that for a second.
Yes.
Because none of them talk about it.
Sounds like bro's about to get messy and start dishing dirt.
And they do it by, taking Anavar and Deca and all the things that now are prescribable by doctors.
Two things right there. Number one, it's interesting that he always says the words there. So basically disassociating from himself. So it'd be interesting to know, does he not take anything? Or is that what he's saying to us now? Because I think he probably is. Especially when, if you factor in, see this real skin color, this isn't like a suntan. This is often when you take high amounts of certain PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, you get this sort of red tinge, well, mainly white people, you get this sort of red tinge. It's almost like the Red Hulk. It's there's actually a term for it, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, they get that sort of look on their skin. So I would definitely say he's taking at least testosterone at the bare minimum. But it's also interesting that he also knows all the terms, because usually when you know all these terms, the chances are that, you probably have dabbled maybe. Because personally, as someone that's been natural, I can honestly say that until I came across Greg Doucette, I never knew what any of these terms was. All I knew was steroids. I didn't know what Anavar was, didn't know what Clem was, didn't know what NK47 or something like that is. I didn't know what any of these drugs was until then, and I almost feel like that's the better thing. The rise in knowledge about PEDs has also correlated with the rise in abuse of teenagers, because the more they got told all these things, the more they can Google, and what made it easier for them to access. Because when I was younger, to get steroids, you would have to go to a weightlifting gym ideally and probably know some dodgy guy there. Whereas now, a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, they opt for things like Psalms by going on the internet and these dodgy chat rooms, and they find it much easier. But yeah, let's see if he actually says or admits that he's on stuff himself.
Deca and all the things that now are prescribable by doctors, and which is good, because at least it can be monitored by a medical professional. But none of those are natural bodies. Those guys don't walk around looking one way, like, for 6 months out of the year, and then all of a sudden they have 35 pounds of muscle on them. We all know what they're doing. They might not want to say it, but they all do it.
Based on what you said, and based on my own knowledge, I definitely think he's on something, but I don't think he's blasting a lot. Simply because the way he spoke about them it almost sounded like, even though he said it respectfully, it sounded like a little bit of hate or a little bit of disdain. Like he doesn't really agree with what they're doing, which I would say is a good thing because it's super dangerous. But he didn't sound like to say it with such passion, I don't think he's taking everything under the sun. Like, I know some people lie, but I just don't believe someone would say it with such vigor if they also done it. I feel like they downplay it rather than saying what he just said, how he said it.
And you've seen it, right?
100%.
So before we go back to Frank talking about the actual things that's used in Hollywood and what he potentially takes, one thing I almost skipped over was he talks about his weight. He mentions that he bumps up to 188 pounds, which doesn't sound like a lot for many of you watching, but I'm going to let him explain it, then come back and explain why it actually is a big deal and does give us a clue as to what he's been doing.
When we were backstage and you were talking a little bit about when you were in Barcelona, when you got to 188, it almost didn't seem like it felt great.
No,
for you.
it felt unnatural to me. I mean, I'm 5'10", and I was 180 something pounds. I had never been there. I was in uncharted territory, and I felt top heavy. I felt like I couldn't. I was lumbering, and I didn't like it. I like feeling light.
So that is very interesting because on first listen, I was like, he's 5'10" and he's got up to like 188-ish pounds. That's not that crazy as someone at his height. But then I started realizing that it's not the 180 a lot of us are thinking. When you're thinking of 180, you're thinking of probably yourself and you're not probably as cut. I would have looked at the physique he had in Boss Level because I've watched that movie. So this was what he was up to at 180. As you can see, he's just as lean and shredded as he typically is. He's more bigger in terms of mass of muscle, but he hasn't gained much body fat, which tells you that at least for this specific role, he had to up the dose of whatever he was on to get this big. And that's why it felt so uneasy for him. Because for most people at 5'10", to be around 185 pounds, to be more reserved, it's not that crazy. For example, I'm 5'7", I'm actually around 185 pounds right now. However, I'm not lean right now. At 5'7", my lean weight is actually around 165-ish pounds. That's a 20 pounds gap. So for him to jump to this and also still be super shredded as he normally is, all it tells you is he had to up the dose of whatever performance enhancing drugs he was on.
But they all do it. Everybody.
And you've seen it, right?
100%. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with using those drugs. I mean, but be honest about it. I mean, let's be honest about it. That's all. It's like people will say, because I take testosterone, right? Mm-hmm. People say, you're a cheater. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm 60.
Yeah.
And I train every day.
Wow. He's 60. I would never have thought he was that old. Wow. Bro, I would, like, steroids or testosterone aside, I would love to be as active as this guy is. Bearing in mind, I did skip over his training routine in this video because I didn't want it to be too long, but he spoke about he doesn't just do bodybuilding, he does a lot of like martial arts training, because if you've seen his movies, he's very nimble, so he's like got very good mobility. I would love to have half the mobility and even a third of the gains that he has at 60. I would never, he has aged very, very well, considering that he's on this stuff as well. Like, and just to give like kudos and respect, he's not one of those people that randomly just started taking steroids and got massive. He's had a good physique from when he was younger. Because this is like from an advert from like, gotta be like 30, 40 years ago now. Look at the pixels. But he has really good physique there, as well as this physique here when he's a little bit older. So he has been known to have like a really good physique. So he's not like that Indian guy that was in Eternals that kind of just went from like super pudgy to like super like Chad looking in the space of a year. He is someone that's spent damn near his whole life in great shape. So yeah, man, kudos to him. Like, regardless of whatever he's used, at 60 years old, to be as active as he is and look relatively close to that. Yes, he's using testosterone, but let's be real. There's many people out there that use testosterone and still don't look that good.
I mean, let's be honest about it. That's all. It's like people will say, because I take testosterone, right? Mm-hmm. People say, you're a cheater. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm 60.
Yeah.
And I train every day. I'm an actor. I'm not the linebacker for the New York Giants. I'm not a competitive Olympic wrestler. Do you know what I mean? I'm not playing for the New York Knicks. I'm not cheating at anything except aging. There's nothing wrong with, you get the role in the superhero movie and you want to look like a superhero and you take some Anavar and you take some this. And God bless you. I mean, it's you're going to go on a cycle or two and you're going to look a certain way for a certain role. A lot of people don't want to admit that for some reason, as if you're going to put 60 pounds of muscle on by yourself eating chicken and rice. Mm. Now, we know that's not possible. Mm-hmm. We just know that's not possible. And there's also a certain aesthetic that we know is not really possible to attain without performance enhancing.
Words to live by. Clearly, a lot of people, unfortunately, if you read the comments of some of these huge stars, they still believe and swear by they are natural. A big one I know is in India specifically. I've seen some of their movie stars like look great online, and in the comments they have a bunch of followers that truly believe that they can get their physique. I saw a guy debating that an IFBB pro in India was natural, and he had this long thing backed up saying that this guy is natural. And I'm also interested, comment down below if you're from India or know the background, if they are living through the period that we went through probably about 8 years ago, because around 8-10 years ago, a lot of people did think that celebrities and a lot of these people were still natural. They just thought it was hard work, 6,000 calories, and as he said, chicken, broccoli, and rice. But in other countries where I guess they're not as hip to it yet, they still are in that mindset where no, believe and achieve, no matter how big you are or how big you want to get, it can be achieved if you just hit the basics of chicken, broccoli, rice, train hard, and keep going to the gym consistently. Those are good, solid methods that you should adhere to. But let's be realistic. If your goal physique is something of the exceptional nature and like truly like ridiculous, it's not going to be achievable that way.
Have you kind of been behind the scenes with those guys and ever, been like, hey, do you want to tell anybody? Or
no, like I've never been part of any pack. Like even my career, I'm like I'm kind of I'm a hustler, and I tell people whatever I'm doing. Like if otherwise I wouldn't do it. Like I'm not embarrassed about anything I do. Yeah, I take one shot of testosterone a week. I take some peptides for BP 157. Helps me. I think it's helping me recover a bit.
In my head, even though I don't watch him often, all I'm hearing is Greg Doucette saying, instead of that one shot a week, you should probably take 2, just so you can stop the peaks and troughs of your energy. Literally, I'm thankful that I've stopped watching those videos so I can stop hearing about blood clot steroids. But yeah, he also said he takes the odd peptides for recovery. Peptides are certain drugs that specifically high-level athletes and wrestlers often take to help recover a lot faster. Sometimes they get injured, and some of these things can just like rapidly speed up the process. So rather than being out of action for like 6 months, a year, it can cut it down sometimes by dramatic amounts. So, honestly, if I was an athlete or an actor or whatever, and someone told me there's something I can take that's relatively not too crazy and risky that would cut down the recovery time by a large amount, I think most would. If a doctor gives you this stuff, a lot of the times you say yes without even knowing what's in the drugs you get.
Peptides for BP 157 helps me, I think it's helping me recover a bit and with some minor injuries. Other than that, that's all me. It's all dedication, diet, and whatever else it entails to kind of maintain a certain physique and a certain ability. And I instill this in my kids. It's all about the amount of time you want to put into something, right? And for me, as far as health, I put all my time into it. I really do.
I know it's a very long video, so if you have made it this far in the video, please drop that video a thumbs up. I highly appreciate it. I want some of these videos to be more deep dives where we can go into things without worrying about the videos being a bit long. And I want to hear what you guys say, so comment down below your thoughts on anything in the video, whether you agree or disagree with me or the celebrities that were shown. Comment down below. And for those of you that want to look into getting in shape, feel free to click my links down below to look into getting online coaching to get yourself some gains.